Welcome to Off the Leash.
Your best source for animal-related news from around the world.
My name is Jason Kenzie.
And I'm Izik Nox. As you can see today, we have nothing on our papers because we have no stories.
Seems like all the animal stories around the world have just stopped.
On today's top stories, we'll have a cat who got bionic limbs from Russia.
We have a man in New York that took LSD and f***ed everything up. It's true.
And cows that have been living rent-free for a month in Montana. Our first story today takes us to Russia.
This is incredible. There has been a cat that has had 4 legs amputated. And you know what they did when they did that? They actually screwed on some fake legs. He's going to be the next pet for the Bionic Man. That was a terrible show. I'm glad it got cancelled.
What's interesting to note is that the cat, whose name is Izik, was out in the cold and got severe frostbite and gangrene on his legs, and they had to be amputated, unfortunately. Now, Jason, how did this cat end up outside?
The cat was actually chasing mice. Wasn't able to catch the mice. Almost froze to death. By the time people found the cat, there was no way they could have saved any of the legs.
What's really interesting about this operation that this cat had is that the artificial limbs have fused with the bones. And that's kind of unheard of. Usually prosthetic limbs are attachments, but these have been installed directly into the cat itself.
The cat is now living an amazing life on all 4 legs. What's happening now is, if you watch the video, you can see that the cat seems to be liking it.
Well, I don't think he has any other choice, Jay. Would the mice not be frozen in minus 40 weather?
Well, the mice in Russia are like big and strong, like most Russians are, and they are adapting to temperatures below 0. In fact, some of the mice are probably the size of the cat. That's Russia for you.
If you take a look at the video, he's kind of like very slowly walking with his prosthetic limbs. I imagine he's probably getting used to it.
The mice are actually laughing at him from a distance, saying, hey, there's no way this cat is going to be able to catch us now.
Izik is also auditioning for next summer's blockbuster hit, RoboCat. Our next story comes from upstate New York,
where a man decides to drive his BMW through a fence, run around back, smash through the door, grab the family dog, and run out. All this because he thought that the house was on fire. It turned out it wasn't on fire. 2, it was his neighbor's house. And 3, he was f***ed up on LSD.
That's right, 43-year-old Michael Orchard had taken some LSD and he thought that his neighbor's house was on fire when he was actually hallucinating from the drugs. And he decided that it would be important to rescue the family's dog, so he drew his BMW through the fence.
Which is quite funny. I mean, if you look at the photo that we have here, it's interesting because he kind of looks like a certain Canadian singer that is from Vancouver.
So, Jason, I can only imagine what the dog was thinking. You know, he's just chilling inside his house, and all of a sudden he hears a window being smashed, and his neighbor comes in and picks him up and takes him out of the house.
The guy basically jumped into his car, and why did he jump in his car? Couldn't he just jump the fence? It must be a pretty high fence for him to want to wreck his BMW.
Maybe he was hallucinating and maybe there was a fence all over the house and he decided the only way to get close to the property was to, mow down the fence with his BMW.
What's fascinating is when he actually broke the window and he's standing there, picks up the dog, he looked over and saw that his neighbor also bought a gorilla, an elephant, a giraffe, a whole bunch of peacocks, and he was freaking out because I'm like, how am I supposed to carry all these animals out? Don't do drugs.
After rescuing the dog, he waited patiently outside the home as police and fire trucks arrived, only to find out that the house was fine and he was high on LSD.
Actually, the police took him to jail where he is awaiting a $15,000 bail bond. It turned out a week later, the dog had taken some LSD, thought that the neighbor was Michael Bublé, and attacked him because he didn't like his music.
As Michael Orchard got released, he went back home to do some more LSD a few days later, and he decided to be more calm about it this time. He went out onto his lawn. He just sat there on a lawn chair and watched his neighbor's house actually catch on fire and just watched it burn down right to the ground. He didn't call 911 because apparently he thought, oh, that's probably just the LSD kicking in.
Now his neighbor doesn't have a house or a dog. In other news, we go all the way to
Montana,
where a bunch of cows has broken into a house and lived there for a whole month, and no one knew that they were there.
Now, Jason, this is an interesting story. Now, if you have a brand new house that you're planning to move into and you're not going to be there for a while, I would imagine you would probably lock it and have someone check on it at least from time to time.
Well, what happened was the chickens were able to unlock the door, letting the cows in. Those are some smart chickens.
That's right, the cows have moved in and lived in that house for about a month. They somehow figured out to either open the door, or the door was left open, or it got broken down, maybe by a person. And then when the burglars found nothing in that home, they just left the door open, and then the cows had moved in and lived there.
The chickens did it. You always blame the chickens. And what's interesting is the cows actually had, set up a TV set, and they were watching Netflix, and they were doing their laundry. And then all of a sudden, the owners who live in Washington, they went there to move there and found these cows living there. And they still had to go through the courts to get the cows out, because they were smart cows. They knew all the loopholes. They had to get eviction notice.
These cows had actually belonged to a neighbor who had a very large head count of cattle, and the neighbor actually had filed for his cows as missing or stolen because he couldn't find them. He looked around the property where this house was located, but he didn't think to look inside the house because he believed someone was actually living inside. It didn't cross his mind to think that his cows had actually moved in.
Now, this would have been okay with the owners of the house, but it turned out they were vegans, and it didn't go over very well.
That's right, the cows were charged and forced to pay 800 liters of milk.
And they never did catch those chickens, the ones that let them in.
Parts of the house have now been deemed unusable as it was covered in about a foot of manure, and they had to replace all the flooring.
Yeah, but for the rest of its life, the husband can fart and no one would even know the difference because it just smelled like cow shit. So it's like, honey, did you fart? No, remember we had cows living in here for a month? And if you think this was such a bad story, there was a couple in India who came home to find that a bunch of elephants had moved into their house. Yeah, you think the cow shit a lot.
Well, at least it's probably easier to clean up elephant shit. As far as I know, they're like bigger, rounder balls. You could just just pretend you're bowling and just toss them all out of the hallway.
Thank you so much for joining us on another OTL Animal News. If you like what you heard and you like what you saw, please hit the like button and the subscribe button and send us your comments. Tell us what you thought of what we had to say.
That's right. When you hit that bell, you will be notified every time we upload, which is Thursdays at 6.
We love hearing from you guys. We have so much fun doing this job.
And don't forget,
always support your local animal rescues.
Thank you for watching, everybody. Have a good night.
See you next week.